The Galactic Council had seen empires rise and fall across 10,000 cycles. They had witnessed the Krill conquer 17 systems with their chitinous war fleets, watched the Vexen Collective enslave entire species with their neural networks, and observed the cold efficiency of the Korthek Dominion as they glassed worlds that refused submission. But they had never seen anything quite like humanity. Commander Arya Chen stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, her eyes tracking the debris field that had once been the Krill flagship. Behind her, the newest member of her crew, a 7-year-old girl named Blake, pressed her face against the transparent steel, counting the stars. "Arya?" Blake's voice was soft, almost lost in the hum of the ship's systems. "Yes, little one. Are we winning?" Arya knelt beside the child, her combat armor whirring as servos adjusted to the movement. "We're surviving. That's what humans do best." The war had been raging for 3 years, when the Krill swarm first descended upon Earth. They had expected easy prey, a species barely beyond their home system, primitive in their understanding of quantum mechanics, laughably dependent on chemical propulsion. The first wave was supposed to be a culling. Instead, it became a graveyard. Humanity didn't have superior technology. They didn't have ancient weapons or mystical powers. What they had was something the galaxy had forgotten existed: the capacity to turn every disadvantage into a weapon, every loss into a lesson, every scar into armor. Blake had been orphaned on Mars during the second siege. Arya had found her in the ruins of a biodome, clutching a stuffed rabbit and singing a lullaby to herself. Most species would have sent the child to a refuge world, far from the front lines. Humans brought their children into the war, not to fight, never to fight, but to remember why they fought at all. "Time for bed, Blake," Arya said, checking her chronometer. The little girl pouted. "But the battle just ended. Don't we need to? Bed, now." Arya's voice was firm but warm. "You know the rules." Blake sighed dramatically, a sound that made several of the bridge crew smile, despite their exhaustion. She trudged toward her quarters, the compartment that had been carved out of what was once an ammunition storage bay. The crew had painted murals on the wall's Earth as it looked before the war, blue and green and impossibly beautiful. "Good night, Arya," Blake called from the doorway. "Good night, little warrior," Arya replied. The child paused, then turned back. "Good night, everyone." Across the bridge, hardened soldiers, men and women who had seen their homeworlds burn, who had pulled triggers countless times, who carried the weight of millions of deaths, stopped their work. "Good night, Blake," they answered in unison. It had started accidentally. 6 months into Blake's time aboard the Indomitable, she had wandered onto the bridge at shift change and innocently wished everyone a good night. Lieutenant Commander Torres had been the first to respond, his voice cracking with emotions he'd thought long dead. Within a week, it had become ritual. Within a month, it had spread to other ships. The Krill intercepted the transmissions. They analyzed the acoustic patterns, searched for hidden codes, for tactical significance. They found none. It baffled them. Why would apex predators waste bandwidth on what appeared to be juvenile social bonding rituals during wartime? They didn't understand. They couldn't. Admiral Vex Koth, of the Krill Supremacy, watched the human fleet from his command throne, his mandibles clicking in confusion. His intelligence officers had compiled reports on humanity's bizarre behavior. They brought their young to war zones. They maintained inefficient sleep cycles. They wasted resources on morale. They stopped fighting at arbitrary intervals to consume nutrients together. They sang. They told stories. They mourned their dead with elaborate rituals. And every dusk measured by Earth's 24-hour cycle, regardless of their location in the galaxy, they said goodnight to their children. "Weakness," Vex Koth declared. "Sentiment is the disease that will destroy them." His subordinate, a younger warrior named Crix, hesitated. "But Admiral, they have never retreated. Not once. Even when we had them outnumbered 50 to 1 at Titan. Even when we deployed the entropy weapon at Europa. They lose more battles than they win. Yet they have not surrendered a single system." Vexkoth's claws flexed with irritation. Because they are too foolish to recognize defeat. Or because they have something to protect, Crick said quietly. The next engagement came at the outer rim of the Proxima system. The Krill committed their reserve fleet over 2,000 warships. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. The human fleet numbered barely 300 vessels, many of them damaged from previous encounters. The battle was brutal. The Indomitable took hits that would have vaporized lesser ships. Arya fought with the cold precision that had earned her command. But she also kept one eye on the chronometer. Blake was in the reinforced shelter deep in the ship's core, protected by meters of armor and emergency force fields. As dusk approached Earth dusk, the time that mattered, Arya gave an order that made the Krill believe humanity had finally lost their minds. All ships, cease fire. 60-second window. Her own crew stared at her. The Krill hesitated, wondering if it was a trap. Across the human fleet, on 300 battered warships, the tradition held. Parents called their children on secure channels. Soldiers who had become guardians to orphans stepped away from their stations, and they said goodnight. Blake's voice came through Arya's personal comm. "Good night, Arya. I love you." "Why? Why? Good night, little warrior. I love you too." Then the humans opened fire with a ferocity that pushed the Krill back 3 light minutes. Admiral Vexkoth watched his fleet fragment. He finally understood. Too late. The tactical error he'd made. Humanity didn't fight for territory, or resources, or dominance. They fought for the right to say goodnight. For the promise of tomorrow's hello. For the defiant belief that childhood should exist even in the cosmos's darkest hours. The Krill could destroy human ships. They could not destroy what those ships protected. When the battle ended, the Krill withdrew. Vexkoth composed his report to the Supremacy, recommending a ceasefire. He included a simple observation. They are not warriors who have children. They are parents who became warriors. There is no victory against such an enemy. On the bridge of the Indomitable, as stars wheeled past and repairs began, Arya stood at attention. Around her, every officer and crew member did the same. They faced the sector of space where Earth once shone, where Blake and millions like her would wake tomorrow. And the apex predators of humanity, the warriors who made generals tremble, saluted the dusk. For the children who still believed in good night, for the tomorrow they would build with bloodied hands. For humanity,